Hello everybody and welcome to a STEM kit tutorial video. This STEM kit tutorial is going to be on the Mousetrap car. It's going to go through the process of how you assemble it, how you operate it, going through some of the tools that you need and everything you're going to need to know to make your Mousetrap car work as best as you possibly can. So we'll get into the process and some of the components that are into the kit. So when you open up your kit, you're going to find a couple of different bags. One of them is going to be the Mousetrap bag, and in that bag you're going to find all of these components. So you're going to have the Mousetrap car base. You're going to have three different sizes of wheels: a large, a medium, and a small. For the large and the medium, you're only going to have 2 wheels. For the small, you're going to have 4 wheels. You're going to have 2 axles, 4 wheel hubs, which are just these little pieces of PVC. You're going to have a Mousetrap assembled with your lever arm onto it already. You're going to have 2 different kinds of zip ties. You're going to have a shorter black zip tie and then a longer white zip tie. And then you're going to have a piece of string. So that's everything that's going to come in your kit. To actually complete this activity, you're also going to need a pair of scissors and possibly some tape depending on how your wheels are sized. But I'll get into that a little bit later in the video. So we're going to start and go through the actual assembly guide step by step here, so you can follow along with your guide that came in the kit, as well as following along in the video here. So we'll start with step 1, which is the wheel bearing assembly. So for this step, you're only going to need your Mousetrap base, your 4 wheel bearings, and then some black zip ties. So for step 1 here, you're going to take one of your wheel bearings, the small PVC pieces, and you're going to place it onto the top of the car above these 4 holes in the top right corner here. Then what you're going to do is you're going to hold that in place and you're going to put a zip tie, a small black zip tie, up and around it. So up the front hole, down through the back, and kind of hold it in place with your finger. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the zip tie, place the small end through the head of it, and then you can pull it tight by pulling onto the end of the zip tie here. It gets a little tricky with trying to keep the pipe in place, but once you have one in, it should stay in place pretty well. So you pull that tight and then center this over the 2 holes up there. Then you're going to do the same thing with another zip tie on the second set of holes, running it through it, down through the bottom, and then pulling the zip tie tight. So you're going to repeat this process on each of the 4 corners with each of your remaining PVC pieces, and then with your small black zip ties that you have here. Then once you're done putting each of those in place, you're going to take your scissors and you're going to trim the end of the zip tie off so that you have a nice clean cut on the bottom. This will let your Mousetrap car roll without actually touching the ground. Okay, so when you are finished with step 1, your car should look like this, where you have your 4 wheel bearings attached to each corner. The zip ties should be nice and tight so that these can't move around too much, and these should not be sticking out over the ends. They should be pretty close to flush, and then we will move on from there, going to step 2, which will be the wheel and axle assembly. So for step 2 of this assembly, which is the wheel and axle assembly, you're going to need your Mousetrap car base with the wheel bearings attached to it. You're going to need your 4 small wheels, your 2 axles, and possibly some tape. We might not need this, but just keep it handy just in case. So to start this process, what you're going to do is you're going to take one of your axles and press it into one of the wheels. This is going to be a little bit of a tight fit, so if you press it onto the table and push down into it, you can get it in fairly easily. So you want that to be nice and flush with this so that the wheel is all the way onto the axle but not protruding through. So once you have this part assembled, you can take the axle and place it through the front wheel bearing and push it all the way through both of these so that it's protruding all the way through the car. At this point, you're going to take the second wheel and place it onto the other end of the axle. Again, it might be a little bit of a tight fit, but you want this to be tight onto the axle so that the wheel doesn't slip around or spin on the axle itself. Once you have that assembled, the front axle should roll nice and smoothly. Now that you have that assembled onto there, what you're going to want to do is take one of your small black zip ties and actually wrap it around the center of the front axle in the cutout provided. You're going to wrap it on there and pull it as tight as you can. And then again, snip the extra so that you have this one zip tie in the center of the axle. This will be used later so that the string on the Mousetrap can actually pull the axle and spin it. So for the next part, you're going to take your second axle and your last two wheels, and you're going to assemble the same way for the back of the car. So at this point, if you have trouble where the wheel is too loose on the axle and you can't get it to stay on, what you can do is take a small piece of tape and wrap it around the tip of the axle to give it a little bit of extra thickness. That way, when you put the wheel in place, it'll be a little bit of a tighter fit, and then it'll fit exactly how you want it to. But for the most case, they should fit on nice and snug without the tape, and you shouldn't have an issue. So at this point, you should have a rolling car that rolls nice and smoothly. But what you're going to want to do is actually go to each of your wheel bearings and push them out ever so slightly so that they protrude just beyond the edge of the Mousetrap car base. This will help reduce friction so that the wheel is not actually rubbing against the base of the car. It's only going to be rubbing against the wheel bearing here and that little contact surface. So if you do that for all four of your wheel bearings, it will make the car run significantly smoother. So your finished step 2 should look just like this, where you have a rolling base. And at this point, we're just using the 4 small wheels, but what you can do later on is actually replace the front 2 wheels here with your medium size or your large size wheels, and that's going to change your actual mechanical advantage of the car so that it's going to go faster or slower as it provides more torque with the different size wheels. And you can experiment with that on your own to see how the different wheels affect the travel of the car. So for step 3 of this assembly, you're going to be attaching the Mousetrap mechanism to the actual car itself. So for this, you're going to need your rolling car, you're going to need some of your larger white zip ties, and then some of your smaller black zip ties, as well as the pre-assembled Mousetrap with the lever arm attached. So to start, you're actually going to be taking your larger zip ties and assembling them together to make an even longer zip tie. So what you want to do is take the back of one of them and place it through the head of the other so that they attach, and it gives you a much longer zip tie. This will allow you to get around the Mousetrap itself, as you'll see in the following steps. So what we're going to do here now is take the Mousetrap assembly and place it onto the car so that it sits between these 4 holes, and so that the hole in the Mousetrap lines up with the front hole, or the first hole on the car base itself. At this point, what you're going to want to do is take your longer zip tie assembly and you're going to put it through the back, run it over the top of the car, run it through the bottom, and flip your car over, and then you're going to attach these zip ties together and tighten everything down. Make sure that the Mousetrap is still lined up, and then you can pull these zip ties tight. At this point, you can snip the ends of the zip ties off once everything's nice and tight. And now your mousetrap is partially attached to the front of the car. You're going to be doing the same thing with the back. So you're going to be taking the zip tie, placing it up through the bottom. And what you need to do here is actually move the lever arm up so that the zip tie goes underneath it. And you're going to place it down through the hole on the opposite side. And you can slowly let the lever arm down, flip the car over, and again, attach the zip ties together. Pulling them tight so that it tightens the mousetrap to the car. Again, ensure that it's in place. And you can snip the extra off. Now you should have the mousetrap car with the mousetrap mostly in place on the car. But what we want to do is take one final zip tie, place it through the bottom of the front hole, up through, and then through the mousetrap itself, over the other zip tie, back through the bottom, and then attach it to itself and pull it snug. This final zip tie is going to keep the mousetrap from sliding forward as you go through the rest of the process of the car. And as always, you want to snip off the extra on the zip tie there. At this point, you should have the mousetrap actually assembled to the car. And what you're going to do now is take your string and you're going to be tying a loop into it and tying it to the end of your lever arm here. So I'm going to do that real quick. So with the string tied onto your lever arm, you can do is if you're having trouble with the string falling off of it, you can add a little piece of tape and just wrap it around just to keep that string in place so that it doesn't fall off as we go along. So that will help a little bit. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to take the string and you want to pull it to the front of the car where the axle is, and you need to tie another loop up here, but at this point you're going to tie an actual loop into the string so that you leave the loop there. So when you want to tie your loop just so it's a little bit short of the back axle itself, that way it releases once the mousetrap pulls all the way through. So once you have your loop, you want to snip the extra off so you don't have a bunch of extra string hanging. Just take your scissors and snip that off. And then your mousetrap should be fully assembled with the string on it, the mousetrap assembled to it on your rolling chassis. And we'll get into the operation here now. So to actually run your mousetrap, what you're going to have to do is you're going to take this loop and you're going to attach it to this back hook here that you added with the zip tie. And then you're going to roll your back axle, your front axle here, so that it winds the string onto it, and you'll see the mousetrap spring is rotating and building up tension. So you slowly fill this all the way up, making sure that the string stays mostly in the middle. And once you have it completely wound up, you can set your car down, release it, and the wheels will spin and the car will move. So with the small wheels on it, you have a very quick acceleration. So these wheels will spin very quickly and they might spin out as you saw here. So what you can do is you can switch these out with larger wheels or medium wheels and see how it affects it and how well it does on different surfaces. This car is going to run best on flat, smooth surfaces, If you need to add a little bit of grip to the wheels, you can certainly do that, and you can experiment with it with different things in your house and just kind of have fun with it. But that is your basic assembly and your basic operation of your Mousetrap car, and at this point you should be good to go. So thank you for following along with this tutorial video. Hopefully you were able to get your Mousetrap car completed. At this point you're free to experiment with it and have fun with it. Be sure to swap out the different wheels. You can do different combinations of, medium in the front, large in the back, or anything that you want to. Or you can even make your own wheels if you have stuff lying around the house that you think might work. This is really up to your creativity, and you can do many different things with it. So be sure, if you had issues with this, go back through, watch the video, go through and follow the instruction manual. And be sure to check out Mark Rober's video, which inspired this, where he actually talks about a lot of the physics behind these Mousetrap cars and how the different wheels and lever arms will change your mechanical advantage and give you different advantages and disadvantages as you go along. So be sure to check that out. And again, thank you very much for following along with this video.